My coaching career accelerated very rapidly from charging $50 a month to taking a plunge and charging $1,700 a month. All of a sudden to now where I've coached entrepreneurs with a combined annual revenue of nearly $400 million as of this year. It's actually fucking crazy how this started. I had 42p in my bank account the day we launched. But I never at any point claimed to cure their condition or their issues. It just so happened that what I created did cure their conditions. Now, more often than not, people start businesses to solve problems that they once had. And for me, there was no deeper pain or problem than my own health issues. And in 2021, I decided to start a business or create a program around the same health journey that I once had, which was pretty severe and seemingly chronic digestive issues or gut issues. And right around this time in 2021, the public eye started to understand really the power of the gut. If you want to catch a wave, you don't want to be paddling as the wave is crashing. You want to be spotting the wave coming your way, biding your time and developing momentum, paddling as it comes in towards you such that you can really ride that wave or ride that trend. And back in 2016, 2015, I first discovered fasting and I felt like I'd discovered fire. And by the time I'd written my book, it was mainstream. It was trendy. It was, the contrast from when I first started fasting and people thought I was crazy to the point in which I published my book, it was almost saturated. And so I knew that if I wanted to position myself to be a leader in the field of gut health, I had to be early and I had to go heavy and hard. And so I formulated a product that allowed people to go through the same journey that I went through with personalized programs and a tailored solution to reverse the underlying cause of gut issues. I did this through a low ticket subscription because for me, I wanted to make a product that was accessible such that people who were in my shoes, I was a broke student basically when I was going through health issues, and it was expensive to buy all these supplements and I couldn't really afford coaching and I had to figure everything out for myself. So for me, $50 a month, for example, which is around what I was charging, felt like a very reasonable price to get all of the implementation that I had spent 2 years having to find for myself. I knew that people don't buy from brands, people buy from people, and I'd developed this personal brand around bensmithlive, and it felt intuitive to just drop the Ben Smith and call it live. And it kind of plays on the idea of live bacteria, gut health. It just felt right. And I designed the logo myself. It was just Helvetica live, lowercase with a full stop at the end. Much like my book, I designed my own cover because I didn't have the money to invest in a designer. By the time I launched, I had nothing. So I'd really burnt the boats. I put all of my eggs into this basket. I had 42p in my bank account the day we launched. But I capitalized on what was a huge wave of short form video content and managed to get a lot of eyeballs and traffic on the product. We had over 5,000 emails on the day we launched. And I went to sleep at night knowing I was launching the next day, thinking that my life is about to change and I was about to become a millionaire. How naive I was. And obviously if you haven't run a business before, you underestimate what it takes to actually have people buy your services, buy your product. I knew how hard it was with my book, but this time I had 5,000 emails, I had significantly more social media followers, which is why I threw everything at it. The problem was I spent all of my time building a perfect product, but I had nothing left to actually market and sell what I had developed. And this is a very common mistake in business. People spend all of their time building a product and they believe that everyone has the context on, what the product is and what you've been working on, when realistically people only know what you tell them. And at that point, I hadn't told people nearly enough about what the product was and what I was really doing to the extent that they could really trust in me and purchase. And so on the day we launched, I remember shooting a live stream. I was cooked, literally so burnt out, you could see it in my face. And obviously when you're a health coach or you're selling a health product, I'm client number one. So on that level, I wasn't exactly exemplifying what the product was that I was selling. But we had, I think we had something along the lines of 6 people sign up on the first day. 5,000 emails, and 6 people signed up. And it was a $50 a month program. So at this point, I thought I was completely fucked. And that's where, I had to trust in what I'd developed and understand that, okay, I need to put the same amount of time, effort, and energy into marketing this product if I actually want people to be interested enough to buy it. And so step one was actually, even though I just launched a business, was just to do like a hard reset. Here now I'm in a cabin doing exactly the same thing. I'm just away from my phone, away from service, doing a nervous system reset. And having just launched a business, I focused on fulfilling those initial customers that trusted in me. And then I just got some rest, knowing that this was going to take time, and a lot of it. And I steadily wound up. And what I did was I started doing these reel series where I would follow the program for myself. In that way they could see what every element of the program was. At this point, this is where I was really warming up those people who had showed a little bit of interest but didn't really know what was on the other side. And I remember I did finally get that aha moment, because it was Black Friday. I launched at the beginning of October, and then Black Friday's at the end of November. And this is where I had that kind of for the first time ever checking Stripe. And I remember when I made the $4,000 in a day, and I was like, holy shit, I'm the man. That's how I felt in the moment, at least. Really, this is where I guess the battle first began, finding the balance between being a business owner and being a health coach and helping people change and transform their lives. Because fundamentally, my intentions have always been very stellar, in my opinion, in terms of wanting to actually help people transform and change their lives. When you become a business owner and you get wrapped up in the numbers, it can become very tough to hold on to the more authentic and raw side of yourself. And that's been a battle for the last 4 years since. So Black Friday, we set the world on fire. And then over the course of the coming 12 months, we helped over 1,300 people. And I remember the first testimonial I got brought me to tears, because her name was Emily, and she's probably going to watch this at some point. She was basically found lying on the floor in her office, just in pain, severe pain with cramps. I think her boss sent her to the hospital. She'd been struggling with digestive issues, and the doctors just gave her a prescription, and she was taking a rotation of different medication just to get through the day. And she joined us, and through just a natural and holistic approach, following this system that I had created, within 2 months she was completely symptom free, and she threw all of her medication into bin. And it's really important to understand, especially if you have a kind of chronic or seemingly incurable health issue, it's not just a case of eating healthy or doing healthy things. That's not going to be enough. You need to apply a strategy that gets to the underlying cause of your issues. And so in our case, we were creating an environment where individuals can actually heal in terms of their digestive function. The case studies, the transformations was just rolling in. And these are the moments where I swing back to, this is why I do this. These are people's lives who are tangibly changing forever. They're going from living in pain and suffering, and through my program, what I have created, they've changed their life. And there's nothing more satisfying than helping people through the same problems that I knew were so savage for me, and also giving them a support system where they feel like they were finally heard and understood, because they'd been to doctors who gave them a prescription and sent them on their way, or told them that there's nothing that you can do, and they were brave enough to question that and to have belief in the fact that there is a solution out there for me, in the same way that I once had myself. You might ask, how was I qualified to do this? At that point, I had a nutrition diploma, just launched a diet nutrition book. So I had ticked the necessary boxes to be providing people holistic support with their health, but I never at any point claimed to cure their condition or their issues. It just so happened that what I created did cure their conditions. And I started to develop a reputation for helping people reverse health conditions. And with time, to be completely honest, I just stopped resonating with the gut. There's only so much you can talk about constipation and diarrhea without losing your mind. And I had changed. I was healed. It started to become a distant memory that I had health issues. And also I became an entrepreneur. I was no longer in the same position financially. I had more freedom. I was traveling. And so I started to have to put on a character to show up for work. I would wear glasses in my content, and I would have to lie about what my life really looked like to stay relatable. And unfortunately, I stopped resonating quite so much with my customer's journey. Obviously, when I first started live, there was a deep fire inside of me to help people go through what I had once been through. And now, I just developed a tribe of friends that were more entrepreneurs, and I knew so much about health outside of the gut. And I found myself coaching my existing clients in ways beyond what they were needing. And it became clear that there was a huge, I know the moment where I looked at my own Instagram story and I didn't even recognize that person. And I'd just taken that piece of content. So I no longer recognized who I was online. And I had this huge identity crisis where I'd just built a business around this identity that was basically no longer aligned with who I was as a person. And in my case, I was basically shoved in the back because I kept live going as long as I could, and it crushed me to let it fizzle out. But my family went through a pretty rough legal battle, specifically my mom. My mom was my soul. I was raised by a single mom. I still remember the days where this might sound a bit rank, but she would work all day, come back. I remember the time where our kitchen was in a caravan, so she'd cook us food, take care of the dogs. And then, there was a borehole flooding in our garden, and she used to go out there and basically manually pump from the borehole into like a ditch. And she'd stand out there in a woolly hat and a jacket. And we lived on a bit of a farm at that point in time. So she did absolutely everything to look after my brother and I. And all of a sudden she was, being challenged and in a pretty nasty legal battle. And I was at a point in my career where I felt like I could contribute and help. But live fundamentally wasn't going to be enough. And a low ticket subscription business model is very tough and very challenging. My whole business model was to help them reverse their condition, and obviously once they'd reversed it, they needed something else, and it wasn't what I was providing. And so I started one-to-one coaching, and very quickly it became clear that I resonated with an audience that needed and wanted a very high standard of coaching, which I was in a position to provide. And it's actually fucking crazy how this started. There was one client in the live community who was clearly way too high level for what we could offer. And so, I basically created an offer and a service around him where he could work with me, obviously for a much higher price point. Again, if you're starting a business, don't feel obligated to arrive and start selling your business whole. For me, within Aura and my high ticket coaching business, I built the product around my clients and what they needed. And that has allowed me to build a product over the course of 2 years, as opposed to spending, a couple of weeks or a couple of months building a product to the point of completion and then rolling it out. And the first client I closed for one-to-one coaching, it was £1,700. Fuck, I was like, you couldn't wipe the smile off my face. And within the space of 6 months, I was charging 10 grand for a single client. And that's not that I was overcharging. That was an appropriate price point for the level of value that I was providing. And that person renewed twice. So clearly they were happy and satisfied with the value. And so my coaching career accelerated very rapidly from charging $50 a month to taking a plunge and charging $1,700 a month, all of a sudden, to now where I've coached entrepreneurs with a combined annual revenue of nearly $400 million as of this year. And that is who Aura serves, is people like myself who were then on that journey to create something special and have an impact. There's a great book, it's called Building a Story Brand, and the whole Aura business model was built around this 7-step storytelling framework, which begins with a character, and that character was an individual making an impact, aspiring to do big things, striving to make 6, 7, 8 figures, and needing to manage the demands that come with that. Fundamentally, it's an obsession to just be the best. And that's who I want to help at this point in time. That is why, as of right around now, I'm going to share my full protocol for the first time ever. And this is where I'm supposed to leave you on a cliffhanger, because the video is not going to be released until next Tuesday. So if it's already been released, you'll find it on screen now. You can click to watch it. Otherwise, I will see you on Tuesday for my complete health protocol.